It's 5 o'clock. We're ready to pop in the Pop Go the Beatles spot. George Harrison, Paul McCartney, John Lennon and Ringo Starr, that's the Beatles. The Marauders, that's their guests. And Rodney Burke, that's me. All right, and here are the Beatles in Chains. And that was dedicated to all our chain spotter friends. Well, here's a card that says, you said last week that nobody ever thanked you. Well, we'll thank you if you'll let the Beatles say something and sing You Really Got a Hold on Me. Well, thank you, Val and Jill at Dartford.
I've got another one here, Rodney, from Jeff the greengrocer.
All right.
From High Road, Chad Hoof. For Jenny of 16 Grantham Court. And also for all next year's fifth form and last year's fifth form and tomorrow's fifth form of Robert Clack Tech, Wood Lane, Dagenham. For Jill Riley. You really got a hold on me, Jill.
And no closing record this week. Instead, as promised, one more number from the Beatles. First of all, there's a card from Mrs. Sheila King of Northfield Road, Ringwood in Hampshire, who wants either a Beatle or a Rolling Stones number for a friend. Sheila Trill of Odell New Road, Moortown, will be 21 on the 19th of February. Well, how about the Beatles version, their own composition, which the Stones recorded, I Want to Be Your Man? That sounds a reasonable idea. And we'll play this too for Kenny of Glasgow, or from Kenny of Glasgow, from Miss Anna Pettigrew. It's also for Pat Golpin of 8 Peel Street, Droylsden, Manchester, for all Ringo's fans and for herself, because they say they've never heard Ringo sing on Saturday Club, so will he sing this one? I don't know whether it'll turn out that way or not, but we shall have to see in just a moment. It's also for Sylvie and Thelma of Prittlewell Chase, Westcliff-on-Sea, with a dedication to their sister Pam Munro, who was 21 last Thursday and is having a party tonight. I hope it's a real swinger. And here now are the boys with I Want to Be Your Man.
From the Beatles, Misery. Well, I hope I can put a stop to some of that. Now, I got a request here. I can't say it's a card. It's more like a poster, really. It's 2 feet by 1 at least. Anyway, I'll read what it says. It says, Dear Hot and Fruity, George, and Sweet and Cuddly Paul, we have written in several times requesting you lovely bugs to sing for us, but so far we've been unlucky and we're beginning to think your program is a fiddle. Well, that's not true. Therefore, anyway, we have resorted to this large-size postcard. Would any of you, preferably George or Paul, sing any song, even if it's 3 Blind Mice, for Ferg, Muggs, Lou, Hearty, Kiss, Boob, and Old Burp, and all of us 5H Walthamstow County High, also Linda, Brenda, Janet, Jane, and William of William Fitz School for 2 crazy Beatle fans. Now, this is written from Carol Smith and Pauline Laws of Walthamstow. Also for Derry Wilkie, who was a friend of the Beatles in Liverpool, and the song they all want to hear is Lucille. Here's a card I've just got to read. Dear Rod, we were very disgusted to hear last week that those girls said you never cracked a funny joke and that you were a bore. We think you are very nice and thank you so much for introducing those smashing, absolutely marvelous, can't get enough of these Beatles. So after that compliment, would you please ask them to sing any song of their choice for us, please? Thank you. Love and kisses. Cool. Lorraine, Kay, and Linda of Birmingham. Well, how can you refuse? Now then, from me to you, we've had hundreds of cards asking George to say brackets. I don't know why. He said it some weeks ago, and we've never heard the end of it. George, get us out of this.
Brackets! 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 Brackets!
Now, something else we've had a lot of people asking for is to hear Ringo say something and sing Boys. All right, Ringo, me old mate, this is your big moment.
I'd like to do this for Kathy, Val and Jan from Forestgate and also for all the girls in Form VC at Southport School.
Thank you. Paul, you've got one there.
Sylvie plays Ask Ringo to sing Boys for Mon Ami Francis, Claire. Merci for Christine is Francis. Thank you.
Oh, very Francais. John?
We never seem to hear Ringo sing at all, so how about letting him sing Boys for a change from Evelina?
Sure.
Please could the Beatles sing Boys and could Ringo read it out, please?
Yeah.
From Jennifer and Elizabeth.
Halifax.
Can't read it out.
Halifax, Yorkshire. All right, now, while he's climbing behind his drums, Boys has also been asked for by Brian Greenoff of Dewsbury, Margaret of Nottingham, Judith and Janet of Guildford, and Liz Griffiths of Cardigan. Are you ready, Ringo? It's 5 o'clock. We're ready to pop in the Pop Go the Beatles spot. Once more, George Harrison, Paul McCartney, John Lennon and Ringo Starr form the Beatles, who introduce for the first time on radio their guests, Tony Rivers and the Castaways. Okay, Beatles, from the top, for the last time, She Loves You. She Loves You. And what I meant by for the last time is that this is the last show of the series. Well, I know the boys feel a little sad about it, and perhaps for that reason they've chosen this one, Ask Me Why. And so we come to our first request spot. And this card asks for anything from the Beatles for Cousin Gillian on holiday in the Isle of Wight. And that's from Susan Swaney of Manor Park, London. Oh, this card has spelled out on it the capital letters of the word Beatles and fitted in breathtaking, enjoyable, adorable, terrific, lovable, exciting, and smashing. Well, that's pretty neat. And it's from Chris and the two Dianes of Dagenham, and they want to hear Devil in Her Heart. Devil in Her Heart. Well, now, as you know, I've done a lot of talking on this show. Well, somebody's got to do it, haven't they?
Yeah, and this request says...
Oh.
Will one of you please read this card with our request on it? Why do we want one of the Beatles to read out this card? Well, they never read out the requests anymore, and that Mr. Burke is always reading them out.
It's not true.
And we don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
So please us by singing I Saw Her Standing There and by reading out our card. Love from two Beatle fans, Angela and Margaret from Leicester.
Yeah, and I've got one here from Sue Breesley of Ashton in Surrey, and it's also a request for I Saw Her Standing There, so there.
Charming.
We'd like to dedicate this next number to somebody who's been doing a grand job these past few weeks, the secretary, and she's been belting away, working all the time. Good old Audrey.
We'd also like to dedicate it to you, Rodney, for being a great help throughout the 49 weeks. We'd like to sing I'm Sure to Fall.
This is Saturday Club. And we're 5 today. Yes, this is our 5th birthday show, and the stars who've come along to join us in the party are, for the first time ever on British radio, the Everly Brothers, Frank Ifield, Kenny Ball's band, Joe Brown, Clinton Ford, Tommy Rowe, Kathy Kirby, and many more. But when it comes to popularity stakes, here are the winners. Those 4 sensational gentlemen, the Beatles.
Amateur radio enthusiasts from all over Britain are attending a weekend convention at Manchester, and scores of them were guided to the spot by special radio equipment in their cars, some from as far away as Birmingham. It could be that they'd been listening to Saturday Club.
I suppose it could indeed, David, and I hope they enjoy the last half hour. Now, every number in this half hour is in response to requests, but to keep things moving, we're not reading out the names. Anyway, leading us into this 30 minutes, the Beatles sing both of the songs on their current number 1, starting with I'll Get You. Now, obviously, we had a sack full of requests for the next song, so let's have no favouritism at all and say, if you asked for it, here it is. Well, there it is, and we sincerely hope you enjoyed hearing all the stars and enjoyed the show. Once again, thank you all for the very kind good wishes you sent to us. And let's hope that you'll join us again next week when the bill isn't at all bad. Now, just listen, we've got Roy Orbison with us, the Searchers, Susan Bourne, the Viscounts, Bob Luman, Terry Young with the Sons of the Piltdown Men, Mr. Acker Bilk's Paramount Jazz Band, and Tommy Sanderson and the Sandmen. Now, that's the lot for this week. So, see you next week. Oh, and now, if the audience in the studio here will kindly let me get to the end of this announcement, which is unlikely, I'd like to tell you, tuned to the show at home, that it's our pleasure right now to present Britain's biggest attraction, the Beatles! Now, it's almost a year since the Beatles first hit the show business jackpot, so all the rest of the numbers that you're going to hear today are the big hits that the boys have achieved during the past 12 months. And here's their first one, Love Me Do.
Have no fear, your fairy godmother is here. Your wish is granted. And here are 4 Beatles.
All I want for Christmas is a bottle, a bottle. Christmas is a bottle.
Hello, they've been at the Orange Squash again. Now pull yourself together, Paul, and have a bash at this abstemious, steaming postcard.
I've got a card here from Carol Stewart, and she says that she works in a school for mentally handicapped children, and the school is the Barking Junior Training Centre at Ripple Road, Barking, in Essex. She said, you know, she'd like us to do a song for her. So, here's the song for you and all the kids of the school. Happy Christmas.
And that's not all, because there's more from the Beatles instead of a closing record this week. But before you sing again, how about a few ill-chosen words?
Well, Brian, we've enjoyed being here today anyway, especially being here working with you, Brian, because as you know, Brian, it's always a great pleasure to work with Brian Matthew of great repute, and we've been listening to him for years, haven't we, George?
Yeah,
on the radio.
since I was a lad.
Since he was a lad. Remember the old days when we used to knock at the doors? And Rudolph and his Santa Claus is coming on the way. And the happy little girls and boys I know. Yes, oh, some of the old carols, George. Is there anything that you want? It's not a carol,
It's not a carol.
Isn't it?
No, it's a standard.
Seeing as this show is the last Saturday Club show before...
We'll ever do.
the last Saturday Club before Christmas, we'd like to take the opportunity of wishing everybody a very happy Crimble from all of us, and say thank you to everyone who sent in all the cards this week and all the other weeks. I'd like to say I hope all of you have a happy Christmas and a very happy New Year.
And thank you all, lads. I'm sure that all our customers wish the very same to you. And now sing. And that medley probably included many of the songs which the lads will be singing in their own show on the light programme on Boxing Day.
That's our theme for this morning, from us to you. The Beatles are here.
The Beatles are here.
I'll be singing you a song or two, and you'll also be hearing from Susan Morn, Joe Brown and the Brothers, Kenny Lynch, the Alan Elsdon Jazz Band with Jeannie Lamb. Beautiful, gentlemen, beautiful. The Kenny Salmon 7 will be playing for you, and on top of this we have a bunch of discs that we'll be spinning. So we start with the Beatles. Let's have a quick roll call. John?
Yeah!
George? Paul? And Ringo? Yeah! Oh, well, off you go then.
This one's a song which we first heard in the show called The Music Man. It's been recorded by Peggy Legg.
Peggy Lee and that.
Oh, yeah. It's called Till It Was You.
Announcing to yourself. And this one is Blue Skies by Jeannie Lamb with Alan Elsden's Rhythm Section. You messed that one up, didn't you, George?
Big chance coming up now, eh?
Yes.
I'll clear the throat.
I'd like to do my one and only number called Boys.
What are you going to finish up with, fellas? It's been rolling along nicely.
Well, I fancy doing Here Comes the Bride.
No, I fancy doing A House with Love in It.
How about singing I Want to Hold Your Hand?
There you have it, with a burst of applause from the Beatles themselves. From all of us, Susan Morm, Joe Brown and the Brothers, Kenny Lynch, the Alan Elsden Jazz Band with Jeannie Lamb, and the Kenny Salmon 7, not forgetting myself, Rolf Harris, and the Beatles, of course, this has come very sincerely from us to you. Take us out, will you, fellas?
This is a request for the lower fifth of Chipping Camden Grammar School, Gloucester, with best wishes and good luck for anyone taking a GCE from Di Peters of Hilversum.
Well done, lad. And now, Paul, would you suggest a number?
Okay, then. This is one that we used to do a long time ago at the Cavern, and I think it's one that most people will know by now. It's called Hippie Hippie Shake.
George Beatle singing Roll Over Beethoven. He's my favourite. I'm also informed that it's his birthday on the 25th, but I'm sure you all knew that anyway. Probably it pleased especially Daphne Ailey of Headley Drive, Ilford, who asked for that one. And one more request from Mary Carr of 3rd Avenue, Bonhill, Alexandria, Dumbartonshire, Scotland, who informs us that last week during the telephone conversation with the Beatles, her 14-year-old sister Anne practically went potty, and Anne would like to hear any number. So here's Johnny B. Good.